Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Philip, and today we're going to take a look at the ARCA car around Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way. This track is pretty challenging. If you find this track hard, trust me, you are not alone. I really struggled here for a long time until eventually a light bulb kind of went off and a lot more of it made sense. There's a lot more off throttle and part throttle time at this track than you kind of think that there should be or would be. It really does reward patience more than anything. It is possible to drive aggressive here and make up spots, but you run the risk of just absolutely killing your right front tire and then making the car really tight for the rest of the run, which is going to end up hurting you. Taking a quick gander at our good buddy the track map, we've looked at this track before, but just as a refresher, take note of how turns 3 and 4 are a bit tighter than turns 1 and 2. You can see how the backstretch angles itself down to turn 3, so that makes that turn 3 entry a bit more cramped than what it might initially appear to be. Well, so we'll talk our way through the corners real fast. So the entry of turn 1, the car is going to feel initially a little bit loose. There's a crest that you'll go over as you kind of fall down into the corner. That'll make it feel a bit loose, then the car will tighten up, and then you just have to be patient with it and let it drop itself down to the white and blue line down there in the bottom of the corner. Then you can throttle back up where the car is going to maybe feel neutral and maybe feel loose. It kind of depends on a lot of different factors, so you just kind of have to feel that as you go. As you exit turn 2, you're pretty used to that, feels pretty standard. And then as you go into turn 3, like we've said, it's a little bit more cramped, so you're going to want to do the same basic thing that you do into turn 1, but give it just a little bit more off throttle time and let the car really float down there to the bottom of the track before you throttle it back up. It's a bit easier to get the car to rotate from the center of the corner out if you get right down on that white and blue line in the bottom of the track. So try to keep that in mind. The closer you can get to it, the better, but don't run too low and get your left side tires too far below that line because you'll hit the apron and then it'll shoot the car up about a lane or so. So you don't want to do that either. Okay, now it's time for the hot lap. I've done enough talking, so give your ears a break and we'll take a look at the hot lap now. Oh, wait, hold on, pause. Almost forgot steering ratio and brake bias. So steering ratio 14 or 16 to 1. I like the 14 to 1 steering box, but the 16 to 1 can help you save your right front tire just a little bit more. But beware, it might make the car harder to catch if it starts sliding. Brake bias doesn't matter. You're not using the brakes here at all anyway. So now back to your regularly scheduled lap. Okay, once again using the top side of the track to carry as much momentum as possible. You kind of have to flirt with this outside wall and it gets a little bit sketchy on the exit, but if you can manage it, it's a great way to carry momentum through the corner. Now looking for the Coca-Cola sign on the right part of the track, that's where you want to start your turn in. You can see we'll kind of climb up and then go down this crest, and on the way down from the crest, that's where you want to let out of the throttle to about 10%. So right at that point, the steering feels kind of light, the back of the car wants to come around a little bit, and I leave maintenance throttle on until it feels like the car has settled and it's dropped down to this line. Then you can start feeding back in the throttle. You don't want to feed the throttle in too aggressively because you can end up messing up the balance of the car. So just kind of nice and gently feed the throttle back in until full throttle. You'll feel the back of the car get a little bit more light and lively again. And you can see I'm not using a ton of steering lock, so that's telling me that I'm using the rear of the car to help me corner. I've got a nice slip angle. So now you're going to fire down the backstretch, and you're going to keep an eye open once again for your Coca-Cola sign on the right part of the track on the wall. That's going to be about where you start turning in. You'll once again kind of go over this little crest, keep the throttle on to help the back of the car rotate. Once it starts to rotate, that's when you let out of the throttle, and this time we're completely out of the throttle briefly as we let the car roll. Now we're back to about half throttle, just trying to let the car roll down to the bottom and get as close to that blue line as possible. Then you can throttle it back up, and you'll hopefully feel the car rotate. Sometimes it'll feel like it wants to go straight, which is not ideal. If that happens, just wait just a hair longer before you get back to the throttle. And because this corner is a little bit tighter, we're using just a little bit more steering lock to get through the corner. And the car rides up a little sooner than I want it to, which is okay in qualifying, but in the race, if you were to try to exit like that constantly, it would really be hard on that right front tire. And you can cut just a little bit off of the track distance there by going put half of your car below the line on that turf coming to the start finish line, and that should set you up for a pretty good lap. And now for our new segment, Notes and Nuances, where we go over some notes and nuances of the track. Hey, who wrote this garbage? Oh, it was me? Crap. Okay, so for the first part, I wanted to talk about using too much throttle as you're getting into the corner. So as you go over this crest, if you keep too much throttle on, the back of the car just gets too loose and wants to come around on you. And then you kind of have to chase the back of the car, and you end up getting tight, maybe loose on exit, and it just kind of whacks out the whole corner. Similar for going into turn 3, too much throttle, and you can see the back of the car wanted to get loose, but then as soon as I let out of the throttle, the tires grip back up again, and we're carrying too much speed to make the corner, so we end up just kind of going straight up towards the wall and starting to understeer really bad, and that's not a fun time for your right front tire. And once again, just too much throttle right as we go over that crest, and everything gets super, super squirrely, and you gotta try to fight it. Now, the more that happens, the more heat that you build up in your rear tires, and then the less grip they have, so the more chance that you might just get these slow rotations that all of a sudden snap, kind of like this one. So that's where you have to pay attention to what your car's kind of telling you and think about what you've been doing to the tires, and maybe slightly adjust your driving accordingly. In our first example, we got loose on the entry phase of the corner. This example, we let out of the throttle at the right time, but we just hammer back on it really quickly. And on the middle to exit phase of the corner, you can see that makes us loose. So essentially what we've done in this example is surprise the tires with a load of power, and they can't cope with that while they're also trying to corner. So as you get to the middle of the corner, when the car kind of changes direction, they just can't do it, so they lose out right there and causes a bit of a slide. Now this time going into the corner, we're going to let out of the throttle at the right time, but we're going to get back to the throttle too hard, but we realize it this time, so we let back out of the gas, and you can see that causes the rear of the car to kind of shimmy and shake around, and we spend a lot more time off throttle in the middle part of the corner, which is not good because you lose a lot of momentum down that entire back straightaway. So if you're kind of running into that scenario, then that's where I would say just wait a little bit longer and be a little bit more gentle with your throttle application, and that can help really remedy that. So what about the other end of the spectrum? What if we're fighting a tight car in a tight condition? Well, first we have to see what in our driving is actually causing the car to build up tight over a run. So in this case, I'm kind of carrying too much speed on our corner entry. I'm over-rotating the steering wheel. And I'm also causing this extra problem where on the way out of the corner, the car gets really loose because I've got so much steering lock into the car trying to keep it off of the wall as I exit. So you can see that really good here where I have to add steering coming off the corner and the car wants to get loose. So what can you do about that? Well, the first thing you can do is to back off your corner entry just a little bit and make sure that you let the car rotate down to that line or as close as you can get to it before you start adding in a lot of throttle, because you don't want the car to get straight in the middle of the corner. The last thing you want to do is add steering on your way out of the corner. You should always try to work on finding a line that lets you unwind the steering wheel as you exit the corner. The other thing you can do is work on not over-rotating your steering wheel. And really the only way to get better at that is to just practice it. So you want to find really the minimum amount of steering lock that will let you make the corner and keep a good speed. To help remedy this, you really have to pay attention to when you're turning in the corner, is there a point where when you add more steering lock into the car, it just doesn't turn any tighter? So that'll tell you what your absolute limit is, and then you can try to back it off from there. Okay, so quick overview about what we've gone over today. Number one is the importance of off throttle time. So make sure that once you get down into the corner, you let the car and the tires do their job and don't really rush it, but let the car rotate and get down to that line before you start throttling up very aggressively. Number two is going to be learning how to deal with the car as it transfers over those crests going into the corner. On your qualifying lap, you can let out of the throttle just as you go over that crest and the car begins to feel light in the back. Then kind of let it drop into the corner and it should sort itself out okay. On your race laps, it's always okay if you let out of the throttle a little bit before that crest, travel over it, and then let the car rotate down to the bottom of the track. Number three, pay attention to what the car is trying to tell you it's doing and adjust your driving if needed. So if it's getting very, very loose on your corner entry phase, then you need to back off your corner. If you're getting very loose coming out of the corner, then it's up to you to try to figure out, is that because you're over-rotating the steering wheel, or did you add too much throttle too quickly and the car is a bit unbalanced as it changes direction in the middle of the corner? And then once again on the other side of that problem, you've got too tight. So are you getting really tight on your exits because maybe you're carrying too much speed into the front part of the corner and you're getting that right front really hot? Or again, are you over-rotating the steering wheel and putting too much stress on that right front tire? And there we go, everybody. That is all of the tips that I have for you today. Hopefully that gives you some more tools and tricks that you can use to diagnose a certain handling condition and figure out what the solution should be. For a lot of us, this week is going to come down to personal improvement. So it's just going to be those small little gains that you can make, those new personal bests that you can set, is all going to build towards making you a better driver and a faster driver in the long run. So don't get discouraged if the first part of the week hasn't gone how you'd hoped. There's plenty more race days in the week and plenty more time for improvement. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in for another track guide video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, leave a like or a comment down below. Let me know how your race week is going. And if you see me in a race, feel free to say hey. I always like talking to you all in the races. Take care, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video.